the plane just landed 20 minutes ago, but here I am, and thanks to all of you for being here. So the topic is these trends in language teaching and learning. And is that okay without a microphone, or can you hear back there? Okay. And why are we talking today about the trends in language teaching, in English language teaching? One of the reasons is what was mentioned previously, because we are under curriculum revision in our program. Our program is a licenciatura en lengua inglesa at the University of Chihuahua, and we're looking for ways or directions in which where to go in this revision that we're doing of the classes, the content of the classes, the organization of the program itself, and we're looking to information that can guide us in this curriculum revision. One of the things that we're doing is trying to see where the field is going in terms of what's the foreseeable future in language teaching, and we're doing this. However, this idea about looking for trends is called the science of futurology, which is trying to forecast the potential development in different areas. It's an area of the study of itself, and this is what we're trying to do with this. That's what people who look at trends and directions do. Right? However, we don't seem to be always very accurate at predicting the future. Let's look at some examples of failed predictions. Scientist Ernest Rutherford, for example, predicted that it was not possible to do something like the atomic bomb. And of course, we learn from experience that his prediction failed. Also, this guy, this mathematical economist, thought that we were never going to be poor again, or at least in the United States in these conditions. His prediction was made in 1929, just right before the recession in the United States. Ken Olson, founder of Digital Equipment Corporation, he thought that nobody was going to want to have a computer at home. And look at where we are now, right? This other guy, very experienced in music, president of Decca Records, predicted that the Beatles was going to be a total failure. He said that groups of 4 members were doomed to failure. They had no future. He didn't like their voices. And we know the story, right? So I'm just looking at these examples because whenever we look at trends, we should be careful about what these trends are telling us, and always be with open eyes to see how many of these predictions really become a reality, and which ones just fade away through the passage of time and because of other reasons. Right? So I want to, if any of you went to Next TESOL just last week, anybody here went to Next TESOL? No? This was a video that was presented there. And I think it tells us something about our future. I hope it works, the sound.
Sorry, I'm late. New York traffic.
Me dijo mi hija que te sabía español.
My boss told me you spoke English. Excuse me. Hello? Not good. She doesn't understand English, and I don't speak Spanish. What? No. What is it?
It's a language translator. It's awesome. Download it now from the App Store right now. Don't follow this.
Don't worry, I got this.
Ay, quisiera que me entendiera. Creo que eres tan guapo.
I wish you understood me. I think you're cute.
The saying goes, business before pleasure, but I think you're cute too.
Dice el refrán, me negocio antes que el placer, pero creo que es lindo demasiado.
Quisiera tomar un trago después de hablar de negocios.
What do you say we get a drink after this?
Sounds good to me.
When using speech trends, business becomes pleasure.
So according to this video, probably with many of the things that are going on, we probably will be out of business, or what can we conclude out of this video? But we're not quite there. You saw some of the translation. Not very accurate there. So what was our search for this future? We had the task of looking into pieces of writing, and we managed to collect 32 pieces that talked about these ideas. What are the trends? What are the directions? Mostly we did in search engines. We look for in databases. We use 4 keywords for this search. We look for new trends in English language teaching and learning, new directions, the teaching of English in the 21st century, and what's the future of the and that's how we collected these 32 pieces of writing that went into revision. We collected pieces that went from 2005 to 2013, and from these pieces of writing we had some 12 that were journals and articles, 8 books or book chapters, 7 conference reports from proceedings. In the picture we have Dr. Jun Liu, who just visited us 15 days ago. He's a former president of TESOL International. We look at books and then articles from different places that talk about this. And this is what monographs and 2 dissertations. So we had like a range of different kinds of works that were talking about what are these trends. And so what we did is we analyzed these papers and we classified what are the topics that are most recurrent in the people that are talking about the future, and then we rank them into different categories. And what I'm going to present is what the results were of this little search that we did for the future. So the first one is technology, as you might guess. And just by looking at the number of talks in the next TESOL that was presented, many of the talks that you could attend at that conference were related to using technology in connection to language teaching. And this is kind of obvious from the video, right? Technology is very much into our field nowadays, whether we like it or not, because these are some of the topics that are being talked about in relation to language teaching. The use of multimedia instruction, e-learning, networking, the use of mobile devices in classes, the idea about learning on the go, wikis, blogs, ebooks, online support, electronic portfolios, podcasts, e-learning, inventors. And mainly all of these talks that are revolve around these issues can be subcategorized into 3 different areas. One is using this technology to enhance learning or teaching, using technology by the teachers in order to better plan their courses and administering any kind of learning environment, and to improve assessment. That's another area that has a lot of impact with the use of technology. As we know, students nowadays are digital everything, digital natives, people who have spend all their life using technology, using tools, gadgets, etc. And this gives us a different profile, learners with unique learning habits and preferences. Our digital natives have a tendency to express and relate to others through digital technologies. They have the ability to use all these things to access information and create new knowledge. Moreover, these digital natives, they have less tolerance for completing worksheets by hand or listening to lectures. Just yesterday I was teaching class and I had this brilliant student in one of my courses, morphology, and he was paying attention to, you could see that he was paying attention to the presentation by one of his classmates, but at the same time he was playing a game in his computer, and that's something that we teachers hate, that students are not fully paying attention to what's going on in the class. But it's very difficult to win this fight because students are used to multitasking, to doing many things. He was even asking questions at the end of the presentation, so how can I tell him it's wrong what you're doing, you're not paying attention, you're not involved in the class, but he has this capacity of multitasking, of doing many different things at the same time. I'm not saying that's the way it should be, but that's the way it is. We're all the time fighting nowadays with the use of technology in our classes because they are just digital natives. And the second topic that was most recurrent in these works that we review is the status of English. And you could see that there's a lot of talk nowadays about what is the status, what is the role of English in the world, right? And there's a lot of talk about the impact of migration, globalization, our redefinition of the role of English in society, in all societies in the world nowadays. There's this idea about legitimizing local varieties of English, what happens with the English of India, what happens with the English of Australia, not just the United States and not just England, but all these local varieties of English that are gaining status in the international picture. We have this idea about intelligibility, cross-cultural appropriateness. All of these are recurrent topics that have to do with the status of English. We have nowadays very not stability in the terms that we use. We talk about English as an international language, as a world language, as a global language, as a lingua franca, as an additional language, English as everyone's language. And I have this term in parentheses that I learned in Mexico. So all these terms are moving us away from the idea of learning English for no apparent reason. That was kind of like one of the things that we did in the past. Many people learn English for no apparent reason, just because it was in the air that it was important to learn English, but it was not a reality as it is nowadays that people really need to learn English, right? So, and for many different reasons. We're changing the role of English since, according to statistics, and Radol is going to give us a talk in Portland next year in the conference of TESOL International about some of these ideas. The majority of human interactions do not involve an English native speakers. Most of the interactions that take place in English nowadays are between people who are not native speakers of English, as we know. So these are some of the buzzwords that that you can see in the literature, that you will see here in talks, that you will read about. And there are some interesting things. For example, the idea of not following an idealized native speaker of a specific country, but through different means they're trying to come up, for example, with a phonological core that would provide phonological intelligibility. So instead of trying to teach English in an idealized way and trying to speak like an American or like a British, we have these core phonological features that will make second language speakers and users to be intelligible to others, and they're very much paying attention to these features and trying to come up with these core phonological features that will make people communicate without having to follow one path or one model or one direction. Very much about the discussion about the cultural content, this idea that when you learn a language, you have to learn a culture that goes with the language. But nowadays, what culture is it? How much of culture and what culture do you learn if we live in a global society, right? And so it's kind of like regaining all these things. Globalization, international language,